Hello and welcome to Revolution Health. This is Dr. Jason Dean on a Monday afternoon at 2 o'clock. We're live on Facebook. So if you're out there, check us out. I am with someone really cool who actually I just recently met on the road. I travel a lot being in the healthcare world. And this is Dr. Brad Watts. He is a certified strength and conditioning specialist as well as a certified functional medicine practitioner and also the creator of the Nutrition Hero podcast. So Dr. Watts, thank you for being with me today.
Thank you for having me, sir. This is good. How you doing?
Very good. And it's funny because we just recently met on the road and I did not know you before and I had stumbled across your podcast before. And I have so many podcasts going on, so I'm listening to here and listening to there. And you have so much great information, but you hit on something that really stuck out to me. And then when we talked on the road, very fascinating because it's the opioid or pain issue we have in America. And so I wanted to talk to you because I know most people are going to be watching this today have been dealing with pain themselves or know somebody in pain. There isn't anybody this hasn't affected. Would you say that's correct at this point now in American society?
Yeah, I think that if you are not currently in pain yourself, somebody you know and love certainly is. And so it's that common right now, that common.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And give me a little bit of your story. You're a natural health practitioner, and I never fail to find one who doesn't have a story themselves on why they got into what they got into. So as everyone's listening, we're in a stage of healthcare now where people are tired of listening to just a doctor tell them what to do. They want somebody who's been through something and knows what they've been. Give us a little background on your story.
Yeah, man. So let's see. I'm a doctor of chiropractic, classically trained. And when I was later trimesters in school, I thought, you know what? I can't do neck and back pain clinic my whole life. There's something else there. And what it was is chronic disease. Chronic disease has certainly affected my family. I had a grandfather that died at 57 years old of a heart attack. 57. And so what that does to a family from an emotional standpoint, from a physical standpoint, and then from a financial standpoint, when the breadwinner lays down, so to speak, that's a stressful thing. So I get into college and I'm like, I got to look into this stuff. So I started with weight loss, right? And so I was a trainer first and foremost in the weight loss industry. And I thought, you know what, how come some people can lose 40 pounds just by eating well, quote unquote well? And other people on the treadmill, they could handcuff themselves to that treadmill and they're not going to lose weight no matter what. And it turns out that every body is unique. And that's the adventure that I've been on ever since. And it's been almost a decade now in the functional medicine world and never a dull moment. So that's for sure.
Excellent. So you are helping people naturally constantly. You're actually working with other practitioners as well. But I want to dive into this pain thing because I'm going to give you some statistics that I've heard of, but I want you to really give everyone a snapshot of what's going on here. I've been reading that roughly almost about 80% of the world's opioids and pain meds are consumed by Americans, which is completely mind-blowing to me, even as a healthcare practitioner who sees this on a daily basis. It's still mind-blowing to me. Give me a little bit of what you're seeing from a pain standpoint in America right now.
That's right. So you're right, 80%, and that's a huge number. It's almost like the rest of the world might not be in pain, just us. So, but I say that facetiously. And when I give you these numbers, it's kind of hard to talk about this without sounding like some sort of conspiracy theorist. And it's really interesting. So I want to make sure that you get these stats specifically. This is coming from the CDC. All right. So this is not my opinion or anything like that. Coming from the CDC, I'll give you my opinion in a little bit. But where all of this started, all right, with the opioids is in the 90s. And the government story about how this started is that the pharmaceutical companies brought these medications to the marketplace and they told the physicians, the prescribing physicians, that, hey, people aren't going to get addicted to these. You can use these for pain. You can use these sometimes for depression. And they're going to be great. They're going to be awesome. Right now, the government has to say that because they can't put a face to this epidemic that we have, right? But I think that there's a little bit more to the story here, and I'll kind of unfold that as we go. One of the things that happened is that as providers started to learn about the toxicity and the different things that can show up with patients that are on these opioids, not to mention just the addiction issues that are there. One of the things that started to show up is that they're prescribing this stuff for just about anything, right? It was the new and like fascinating drug in the marketplace in the late 90s. And what happened is that people started to become chemically dependent to these things or on these things. And it started to create a whole bunch of unintended side effects that I really honestly don't think the pharmaceutical companies were even expecting. Right. And I got to say that because I believe that with all my heart. One of the things that happens is 25% of people that are using opioids misuse them. 1 in 4. 25%. That's not even categorizing it as like an addiction or anything like that. That's just people abusing the prescription. 25%. That's not a small number when we talk about hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people in each area of our country, right? So millions overall. This is crazy. So 10% of users of opioids, pharmaceutical opioids, become addicts to them. 10%, 1 in 10. And like the stats don't really mean anything until you start thinking about, well, I have 10 family members, right? 1 in 10 starts to end up with an addiction to an opioid, a chemical addiction. Not like I just feel better when I use it, but like I can't go along in my day without it. And that's a huge, huge difference. So 10% of people that use opioids become addicted to them. Now, this is the thing that absolutely just floored me when I read this, okay? 80% of heroin users, which is an opioid medication, an illicit medication, okay? 80% of heroin users started by abusing prescription opioids.
Totally. I've read that.
That's insane. So like when you read in the media right now, like there's this huge drug war in the United States and we got to make sure that we stop all this stuff coming in from Mexico and whatever. That's crazy because it's not the drug cartels that are creating the market, right? They're not creating the market. They're just filling a need that's already created in the marketplace. And I'm not saying that's right by any means, but the point is that there's something much deeper happening here. It's not as simple as stop the drugs from coming in, right? Because if it's not heroin coming from Mexico, it's going to come from someplace else, right? The desire has been planted, and it's kind of like a runaway freight train right now. So what's happening is that the pharmaceutical companies are trying to create a way around the addiction because the medications are super effective, right? If you've ever met somebody in chronic pain, and they're using the medications, obviously they're going to get some value out of it. Otherwise, they wouldn't be using it. And so there's no doubt, there's no way to even downplay how effective some of these things are. And the problem is that the side effects oftentimes are going to outweigh the benefit for people. And it's measured in the ruined lives. And that's the stressful part as a provider. So that's what I want to highlight here, okay, is that when we look at opioid use in the United States, it's not that they don't work, it's that they work and they wreck your life over time. Okay? And that's got to be stated because the people that are behind this, right, their heart is obviously to help people. Okay. And I'm sure there are some bad eggs in there as well. But the point is their heart is to help people. And so what we are looking for in the natural healthcare world is there a solution? Is there a way to take the mechanism that works for opioids? Is there a way to provide that naturally, right? Or is there a way to create a situation where people don't become so addicted to these medications? And that's what pharmaceutical companies are working on right now. They have a whole host of medications, again, that are going to work on decreasing the side effects of the addiction so that people aren't overdosing. And those medications obviously have side effects, right? Because what do drugs do? They block, downregulate, inhibit, and replace function. And so there's this movement, though, that you touched on when we talked the other day in Dallas. Yeah. There's this movement in natural healthcare where people are starting to call for a different solution, right? If they don't want to go down the road of addiction and abuse, there's got to be another option. So I wrote an article recently about NSAIDs, right, and non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. In the absence of opioids, NSAIDs are a close second, right, in chronic pain recommendations as far as drugs go. And the NSAID side effects that are showing up here with use and abusing NSAIDs as well, are heart attack and stroke, right? Heart attack and stroke, 20 to 50% increase in heart attack risk using NSAIDs that you can just buy over the counter in the first month of use. First month. How many athletes, how many people in chronic pain, how many people are suffering headaches, and they're not going the opioid route. They're like, oh, I'll just take the NSAIDs, right? So the point is that every single thing is going to have its side effect when it's down regulating, blocking, and inhibiting that power in your body that heals the edges of a cut together. And that power that heals the edges of a cut together is what you want to harness. You want to be able to work with it, right? So that's where my passion lies, and that's where all the research is coming from here. And it's just phenomenal. So we'll talk about that in a second here. But when we talk about your audience and the people that are in pain, or the people that are serving those that are in pain, keep doing what you're doing, right? Keep looking for that information. Keep digging and asking questions, because that's the only way that progress is going to be made.
100%. I totally appreciate that. Now, a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm looking at is desensitization. I want to talk about that a little bit. And what I say is, the average person, and even maybe people are listening, they have a small pain, or not necessarily like a blown out joint or a disc problem, but they're having a small pain, and they go and they to their Walgreens, CVS, whatever it is, and they get something small like, the NSAIDs, something you can get over the counter, right?
Yeah.
Now, question for you. What have you seen desensitization wise, whereas that pain gets better? They used to say it was a 10 out of 10 pain. Now it's a 4 out of 10 pain. But it really, when they're checked by a doctor, is not 4 out of 10. It really is a 10 out of 10. But they're experiencing the desensitization. And is there a ramp up from where you start with a Tylenol to where the next thing you end up on is a morphine, or maybe even you're addicted to a narcotic street drug because you thought the pain was going away, but then it comes back and you really just became desensitized to the pain medications? Talk to me about that a little bit.
Yeah, so there's this mechanism in your body where your brain will down-regulate information, means it'll turn off information that's not important, okay? So like right now, you're not sitting there talking with me going, I have shoes on, I have shoes on, I have shoes on. Like, you're not thinking that, right? Because your brain has said that's not important right now, okay? And for people that are in pain, sometimes they lose the ability to turn that off, right? And so what happens is they go, like I am right now, my back itches, okay?
Right.
Or they go, I have sciatic pain, or my neck hurts, I have headaches, whatever it is. And what begins to happen is it's a switch in their body. It's called an A3AR switch, all right? And scientists have called it a pain switch. When that switch is on, right, you don't feel pain. It's down-regulated, it's inhibited. But when that switch turns off, all of a sudden it travels up your spinal cord, hits your brain, and you go, wow, I don't feel well right now. What is going on? Okay. And that's a sign, that's a signal. So that switch is actually like an alarm, right? The problem is that when, as healthcare providers, we don't have awesome solutions, right? That alarm stays on all the time. And the patients get pretty sick of it, right? So what happens is they start to take medication that dulls that alarm. But that alarm gets stronger and stronger and stronger. And so now we need more medication, a heavier medication, in order to shut that off, right? And so what takes place is basically you start working your way up the pharmaceutical chain, and we end up on medications of all different types.
And we are a massive consumer of this stuff from around the world. And it's actually interesting because someone just chimed in a little bit in the fact that not just us, because yes, America consumes the most, but even like Norway, she was saying, is starting to consume more and more, and we're treating it like a candy. But on top of that, let me use a little bit of your functional medicine background here as well. How is this affecting the kidney and the liver when you're putting the medications in?
It's crushing it. It's crushing it. So these chemicals are not short chemicals. Your body is designed to process short chemicals like food, all right? That's why you break everything down into nice little pieces that you can digest and then get rid of. When these chemicals come in and they're the size of a freight train, right? Your body has to go through different steps in breaking them down and processing them. Your liver and your kidneys are tasked with that. Now, when those two things start to stress out, which is what I see quite often in the functional medicine world, your skin has to participate in it, right? And when your skin doesn't participate in it, we end up with toxicities. So we have psychosis, right? People have personality changes, And it's an interesting dynamic. And that's one of the things that pharmaceutical world is trying to compensate for right now, right? Is make sure that they're handling the psychosis aspect when your detox pathways start to choke, right? Now, you're going to see downregulation or decreased function of the kidneys. I shouldn't say downregulation because it's not on purpose.
Right.
You should see decreased function of the kidneys over time. And unfortunately, what's happening in our society right now is that that's a normal sign of aging, okay, quote unquote. I say that because it's hilarious. It's not a normal sign of aging, right? You're not meant to get like sick and broken and busted and disgusted as you age. You're supposed to age with like vitality and a smile on your face, right? Like it's a different process that we're taking on as normal right now.
100%. Now, going into the future, you talked about the pharmaceutical companies are actually trying, and it's funny because a lot of times I'm going to dive into things in this show where I don't want to say conspiracy, even though I know a lot of it's real, and the fact that we get hooked on medications. But long term, where do you see this actually going from here over the next 5 or 10 years? Because right now, I mean, we have to look at all diseases because people are taking pain medication, not just for their like knee that's going bad or their blown disc, but you have cancer patients who are in pain. You have, we have diabetic patients who are in pain, whatever it may be. And people are using this for, even like you said, the doctors are giving it to somebody for things that aren't even necessarily associated with that because they're going, oh, we found out it works for this as well. Where do you see this 5 years from now? Because in a country like us that uses 80% of the pain medications on the planet, where do you see this going? Because you have to have a breaking point, wouldn't you?
Yeah, and I think we're almost there, right? So the mentality is you show up to get the opioids for pain, but you stay for the pleasure or the relaxation, okay? And that's the thing that's starting to change here. So the pharmaceutical industry is always going to be a market-driven industry. Right now, they do have a big place in their corner, and that's the FDA, right?
Right.
So the FDA, the same people that said these medications are safe, all right, are now telling us that they're a problem. Okay, same people. So you can't really rely on them to police this, and it's going to be a market pushback. So as people are getting more and more fed up with the side effects and the ruined lives and the wrecked families,
sure,
that's what's going to change the marketplace. And I think that's what's changing some of the innovation that's out there when we talk about things that work with this A3AR receptor. That's the thing. So in the next 5 to 10 years, you're going to see a whole host of different applications for pain management in the marketplace. And I think that as insurance companies start to tighten what they cover and what they don't cover, what they're willing to participate in and for how long, I think what's going to happen is that they're going to start to understand that a lot of this pain is lifestyle driven. And that's tough to say because a lot of people are like, lifestyle driven, forget you, man. If I had a way to avoid the pain, I would do it. But the problem is that there's a lack of knowledge around what lifestyle actually needs for each person, right? There's a lack of knowledge around that. And that's really where functional medicine, natural health care providers like you come into play.
Sure, 100%. And you say that lifestyle driven because I do presentations quite often, just like you do. And you're talking to these people who go home and they're going to go home at night tonight and they're going to look at television and they're going to see this pharmaceutical ad come on. And you're going to see it's this designed hope that they put in somebody that, oh, well, I have all these problems and I have pain, but it's going to just go away because I take this medication.
Yeah.
And talk a little bit from a personal responsibility standpoint too, because I do understand growing up personally in a family that's had their own drug problems and things like that and don't know how to pain. But there becomes a personal responsibility level of knowing, hey, when I take this the first time or I continue to take this versus potentially getting whatever it is handled nutritionally or even a surgical procedure, whatever it is, that this doesn't end well. This doesn't go down a good road because a combination of everything we just talked about, whether it's the kidney or liver failure potentially, whether it's the brain mechanisms, or whether it's disease long term. Talk to me a little bit about that, of just what you see from a standpoint of the individual patient taking responsibility, because that it's a very slippery slope is how I look at it.
It is. And I think that the patient responsibility aspects have to happen. You have to be talking about these things before people are in pain. Because once they're in pain, you don't care what I say when you're in pain. You're just like, turn it off. let's get to this, right? It has to happen before people are in pain. And what I mean by that is that the personal responsibility is lifestyle choices. Like, they're not going to tell you that you can be chemically addicted to fentanyl, which is 100 times stronger than morphine, in 3 doses. Nobody's going to tell you that before they're like, here, take this for your pain, right? They're going to say, this will help, right? And it does help, right? But
Sure.
3 doses, and you can be chemically dependent on it. Like, from a neurologic perspective, where your neurons will not function appropriately without it, right? And you can't talk to somebody about lifestyle choices in that moment. There's no space for that. Now, what happens is, when I talked about that A3AR receptor, your body's alarm, right? Pain is an alarm for there's something wrong here. And that receptor will turn on at the site of the neuron, and it turns on because of inflammation, right? So inflammation is stress. That's all it is. Inflammation can be a good thing, but not when it's triggering the alarm bells, okay? So inflammation obviously comes from mechanical stress. So we know about that quite a bit in the chiropractic world. Chemical stress, as chiropractors, we don't talk about that one very much, right? But it's a real thing. And then emotional stress, and that's a third piece of the puzzle that I think you're seeing, especially on the coasts of the United States, where a lot of this is taking place, a lot of the epidemic is taking place. People are not managing their stress in a way that is healthy.
100% agree. Now, taking on this, so we have the problem. Mm-hmm. Now we need a solution. And I want to talk about, because you do have a company, you do work with a company, Biogenetics, correct?
Yep, I consult to them. Not my company, I consult.
Okay, but talk to me about these possible solutions, because I will be honest with you, as a holistic healthcare practitioner myself, I have lots of ways, whether it's a chiropractic adjustment, right, whether it's a whole food, herbal, homeopathic supplement, whatever it may be, to help people with some type of inflammation, even chronic inflammation.
That's right.
But I will admit, as well as I think many others, maybe even you, is there has been very few things that can help handle somebody who is in this chronic, 4-alarm emergency pain bell going off. And it's actually very frustrating for a lot of us, of going, oh my gosh, I have this person who wants surgery potentially because they're in so much pain, but we know they don't need surgery. They're just in so much inflammation. Talking about this path you've gone down and seen with these products, because it's the first time we've had something that wasn't a narcotic base that could actually help somebody at least take the edge off and get them down a correct road.
That's right. So first and foremost, I have to say that patients need to live healthy lifestyles, whether it's an herbal supplement or a pharmaceutical medication. If you use them both the same, they're completely missing the point. All right. So eat well, think well, and move well. Everybody's got to do that. Right. That's the personal responsibility aspect. Now, from a supplement perspective, what happens is you want to be able to utilize antioxidants to vacuum up all of that oxidative stress that is triggering this A3AR receptor to turn off, okay? Now, most of the time when people think of antioxidants, they have some level of understanding like, oh, I'm going to have green tea, or I'm going to have mushrooms, or whatever, right? I drink pomegranate juice every day. I put it in my shake. And the point is that those are antioxidants, but antioxidants carry with them the power to either help you or hurt you, right? Not all antioxidants are a beneficial situation for somebody that's in pain. It depends on your genetics. It depends on the type of pain you're dealing with. And so specifically today, I want to talk about neuropathic pain. And this is stuff like allodynia, where somebody would get a painful experience from something that for anybody else is not pain, right? And this is a typical situation that shows up in a chiropractic clinic. Okay, somebody that's sensitive. So what happens is we end up in a spot where we're creating so much inflammation at the site of the mitochondria that the nerve cells, they can't get rid of that inflammation fast enough. And so the nerve cells start to stack up inflammation from the inside out. All right. And they actually will swell. Okay. They swell and it creates an irritation. So if I scratch the back of my hand here a few times, I'll create a wheel response, right? To give you PTSD from physiology there. I'll create a wheel response. And what happens is that's inflammation showing up on my skin. Well, if that's happening at the site of a nerve, there's nothing you can do to like calm that down. Like you're not going to just stop scratching it when it's a chemical irritation. Okay. Now, the chiropractic adjustment will relieve some of that stress by changing the dynamics of joint tissue, change the dynamics of the soft tissue surrounding the joint, and it's awesome. And one of the things that we find is that people heal more quickly, right, from all types of ailments when they're getting adjusted and their nervous system is primed for healing. The other aspect to this that we look at with most people is that there's an opportunity for you to give them the correct antioxidant structure that will actually make it to the mitochondria and not get destroyed in their belly, right, by the digestive enzymes. Make it to the mitochondria and vacuum up some of this metabolic dust. The nervous system can get a break for like a minute, okay? And that's really exciting. So there's this called a pain support kit, a couple of different products that we use, and they're basically liposomes, which is a cell membrane. And on the inside of that cell membrane are antioxidants. And obviously we'll use phosphatidylcholine and that kind of stuff as well. But the point is that they are targeted specifically for these pain mechanisms that are dealing with where the opioids work, I should say.
Wow, so that's incredible. I mean, I really view what you're doing and what you're consulting on here as one of the big answers to getting people off of this, because I think this, I don't want to dive completely off the nutrition world if we're in the world, but I do want to go into this slightly because I think this is how important this is. I know there's chronic disease and there's a lot of problems out there we're dealing with, whether it be vaccines or anything else, but the opioid epidemic, and we are literally filling jails today with people who became drug abusers, went into crime and different things, not even because they wanted to, because they went down this road of pain and they couldn't get out of pain. And for the first time with someone like yourself and others who may be using these products as well, are able to actually get somebody out of pain effectively before, even if they still have to have the surgery. Again, I'm not a surgical, guy, but sometimes it's required. Somebody's beat up a joint, somebody's beat up an area. But we literally could help head off an entire crisis with this. Would you say?
Yeah. So think about maybe a non-surgical situation, right? Because those are usually short-term use. But what about somebody that has arthritis? Okay, something that's a chronic disease, and they tend to get worse with time, not better. And in that instance, that's who this is meant for. The person that has a chronic disease, a chronic neuropathy situation, whatever it might be, that's not going to get better on its own, right? Those people, their only other options other than opioids, right? There's a drug right now that shuts or turns back on, I should say, this A3AR receptor, and it's called methotrexate. Okay, have you ever looked at methotrexate? It's not something that you want your family to be on in the long run. Right? It's basically an immunosuppression mechanism. And so they don't die, right, of chronic disease. They die of a cold, right? They die of, it's like inducing AIDS in somebody when you're on these medications long enough, okay? So you're inducing an immunodeficiency syndrome. And so when we look at how to step in and help that person as part of a healthy lifestyle, it is a supplement-driven world here, because they're not going to find these nutrients specifically in their food. They just can't, as a standard American diet right now. I am a healthy eater, and I am a proponent of healthy eating, whether it be for kids in school or for you at home. But the point is that most people don't have the finances, number one, in order to eat all of the food they need to eat in order to get the nutrition that their body craves. And then number two, even if you had the finances to do it, nobody's going to sit down and eat 7 pounds of vegetables in a day, right? They're just not going to do it. And it's about utilization and absorption and digestion. And so there's a strategy, it's a triage, so to speak, help somebody move down the road so they can make intelligent decisions and change their life.
100%, man. I really, truly appreciate that. It's quality information. We have quite a few viewers on today. A lot of people are listening. In our parting thoughts, before we go to my last question, what would you say is their first step? What do they do? What do you recommend as a physician, but also someone who understands this world of the pain, statistics, et cetera? What is their first step of either not going down this road or getting off of this horrible path of pain medication?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, if you're somebody that's in pain and you're wondering, how do I find a doctor that knows about this stuff, right? Reach out to me. It's fine. Hit me up on Facebook. I'd be willing to help in this instance, okay? Secondly, doctors of chiropractic have the perfect situation, right? The perfect philosophy to help these people. And unfortunately, a lot of doctors of chiropractic don't utilize their entire scope of their philosophy, right? And I was there at one point in my career, and just out of necessity, it changed. And so the scope is this: mechanical, chemical, psychological. And when we can hit all three of those pieces, right, we are changing people's lives for the better. One of the ways that you can do that is by arming yourself with the right education. And so I have, as part of Biogenetics webinar series that we do every month, there's a complete library of topic-oriented discussions like this. And so what I would do is get a hold of Biogenetics, right? Get an account set up, and then just get into that library. It's free information for you to listen to it, let it soak in, figure out, does that rest with me here? Not here, right? Does it rest with me here? Is it something I want to help people with? And then implement.
Beautiful. I truly appreciate that. That is awesome. And thank you so much for pounding not only value, but the education, because ultimately at the end of the day, hey, I can sell 1 million products. You could sell 1 million products. We know how to do it. We know how to help people. But the fact that you're opening people up to educating so they can take responsibility themselves. If somebody educates themselves, they're going to take that forward, not only for themselves, but for somebody else. Before we head out today, give me some information. Where can we find you? Where can these folks find you? Because not only are you Dr. Brad Watts, you are the Nutrition Hero podcast. So tell everyone where they can get a hold of you, get in touch with you, and reach out.
So 3 places. If you are a patient or a provider, I have a book that's coming out soon called Killing Chronic Disease. And you can find that at drbradwatts.com, drbradwatts.com. Secondly, if you are a provider and you want more information on how to help serve your patient base in a way that nobody else is going to, just link up with Biogenetics, right? And so I'll give you a link that you can post maybe underneath your Facebook page. But get involved that way. The education is something that you're never, ever going to regret, right? It's phenomenal. And then third, the Nutrition Hero podcast. We're on iTunes, one of the fastest growing functional medicine podcasts that you're going to find. So people from all over the industry, a lot of my favorites in the industry I get to talk to on usually a weekly basis. And so pretty fun.
Awesome. Well, Dr. Brad Watts, I appreciate you sharing today with all the audience and everybody, and you are literally helping change the healthcare paradigm through a revolution. So thank you so much for being on the show today. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, man. Thanks for having me. Blessings.
You got it. Absolutely. Thank you. Blessings back to you. And do me a favor, everyone, go subscribe to, obviously, the Nutrition Hero podcast. Get on his information. Subscribe to the Revolution Health podcast. We're on both of us, Dr. Brad Watts and myself, are on iTunes and we're on Facebook. Hit up all those. You will see when my videos are coming out, but also you'll see when his stuff is coming out in his podcast, so you can stay atop and help our friends, our family, and our community. So this for today's episode of Revolution Health on a Monday afternoon. We had a lot of viewers watching, which I love. It's fantastic. Both of us live off, I can speak for Dr. Watts here, both of us live off of helping and educating other people. So thank you again so much for tuning in today to the Revolution Health Network. Dr. Jason Dean, Dr. Brad Watts signing off. You guys have an amazing afternoon. Take care.